Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in for this talk today. My name is Kevin Becker and I'm an assistant professor at Texas Women's University, and I'll be talking today on the effect of attentional focus on movement variability in a balancing task. Researchers for a number of years have been interested in how attentional focus influences movement variability. A general idea that's been forwarded is that an external focus promotes greater functional movement variability, and that an internal focus constrains movement variability by focusing on the specific movements of the body. This research has been tested with a number of techniques, but recently a technique that has gained a lot of interest in movement variability study is the uncontrolled manifold analysis. This analysis involves looking at movement variability at several joints in the body and classifying it as either performance irrelevant variability or performance destabilizing variability. So for performance irrelevant variability, this variability is variability that does not impact a control variable that's identified in the experimental design. So in the present study, with balance task, our control variable is center of mass position. So if I have movement variability in my body that does not impact the center of mass position, or does not destabilize the center of mass position, that's classified as VUCM, and that would be identified as good or functional variability. If I have variability that destabilizes my center of mass position, that would be categorized as variability that's orthogonal to the UCM, or performance destabilizing variability. We would generally see this as not a good thing. So this approach has been used in one previous attentional focus study, and in a task where they asked people to do a repetitive hopping task. What they found was that in the stance phase of the hopping task, VUCM was increased in the external focus relative to the internal focus and control condition. So again, some initial evidence here of seeing improved functional movement variability with an external focus of attention. So our aim with this study was to test this same type of a protocol in a postural control task. So what we did is we had 40 volunteers in our study come to the lab and balance on 2 inflatable balance discs with a full motion capture system. And what we had them do is first do 3 baseline trials that were 20 seconds each, where they're balancing on those discs with no particular attentional focus instructions. We followed that with 3 internal focus and external focus trials that were presented in a random order. The internal focus trials, they were asked to keep their feet, minimize the movement of their feet, and the external focus trials, they were asked to minimize the movement of the discs they were standing on. Our variables of interest were first some basic postural sway variables replicating previous attentional focus studies, and then the UCM variables. In the postural sway variables, we expected to find reduced postural sway with an external focus, but we actually found no differences due to attentional focus. This was a bit surprising in our results. Our main interest was in the movement variability in terms of the UCM variables, and so what we found in this was that we found a significant effect of focus in the performance irrelevant variability, or the VUCM, but not in the direction that we expected. We expected for an external focus to have the highest performance irrelevant variability. In reality, an internal and external focus both had lower VUCM than the baseline trials, and internal and external focus conditions did not differ from each other. In the performance destabilizing variability, or the VORT, we saw a similar pattern of results but no significant differences. So as mentioned before, our results were somewhat surprising. We were especially surprised not to replicate the previously identified external focus benefit in terms of postural sway. Some suspicions we have here is that perhaps the task was a bit too difficult. Previous studies have identified task difficulty as a factor that can influence attentional focus effects. Specifically, when tasks are too easy, we tend not to see a benefit of an external focus. So with that in mind, we're interpreting our results related to the UCM with a bit of caution, since we didn't reproduce the basic behavioral effect. It's a bit difficult to interpret something to do with the mechanism behind that effect. So we did, though, find performance irrelevant variability was reduced from baseline of both an internal and external focus. This was counter to what we expected, but it's interesting to note that This is the same pattern of results that we sometimes see with expert performers, that they perform best under a control condition, and that both an internal and external focus disrupt their performance relative to that control condition. So again, if we do have an issue with task difficulty, if the task is quite easy here, they may have been able to perform this task rather automatically without the attentional focus instructions. So moving forward, our suggestions for future research are considering looking at this issue of task difficulty and potentially also looking at this same type of a protocol with different types of tasks. This is a different format than we're usually used to, but I'm still happy to take any questions that you might have. Thank you for listening.